welcome back to my channel. My name is Tina and today is another one of my makeup and murder series. This is a true crime get ready with me series. So if you enjoy true crime and makeup, keep watching. Today we're going to be talking about Caril Ann Fugate. She was a 14-year-old who just left a bloody wash across the West with her partner. Today, because we are doing a 1950s murder, I thought I would do a 1950s pinup style look. I've never done one of these before, so I did my hair and everything, hoping this is going to turn out really cute. So for my makeup, primer will be the Cover FX primer, the Elizabeth Mott Thank Me Later eye primer, Milani Conceal and Perfect foundation, along with some Tarte Shape Tape hydrating foundation. And for concealer, I think I'm going to use the Under the Sea along with Wet n Wild Stick. So Caril Ann was only 14 in 1956 when this all started. She lived with her mom, stepdad, and baby sister. She was apparently one of those teenagers who was a real wild child, and she got into trouble at school, she got into trouble at home, and then she met Charles Starkweather, and he was every parent's worst nightmare. He was 19 and a high school dropout. He had, just a crappy minimum wage job. Neither of them were terribly bright. And it wasn't that they couldn't have been, just neither of them put in much effort. So they were always in trouble at school and always in trouble at home, both of them. And then when they met, it was one of those Romeo-Juliet type situations. Nothing the parents did would keep them apart. He had gotten a job working as a delivery person, and then he quit that because he wanted to be there when Carly got out of school. He took her out, was teaching her to drive. She wrecked his car, or his dad's car. His dad paid for it but kicked him out of the house. Just things like that. Things don't bode well. So he started spreading around the rumor that Carly was pregnant. No idea why. That didn't go over well because her parents looked at her and thought she was gaining a little bit of weight. They immediately thought, oh, she is pregnant. So on January 16th, 1956, he goes over to the house. The stories on this differ wildly because it's between what he said after they were caught, what she says. So she says she wasn't home. He came over and had brought a gun with him because he wanted to take her dad out, kind of mend fences, go hunting. And she said when she came home, there was nothing, no indication of where her parents were or her little sister was, just that they weren't there, and he had his gun and he took her hostage. Neighbors and family came by, knocked on the door, actually called the police, sent them over multiple times because the only person answering the door was Caril Ann. And she had stuck this note on the front door that said, "Everyone's sick with the flu." Well, that of course didn't go over very well with several people. Her grandmother comes by and says, "You need to let me in or I'm calling the police," and getting a warrant to search the house. The police had come by and they said, "Oh no, everything's fine." When they talked to her, she seemed fine. They just kept going away. Well, finally, 6 days later, the police come back. They're gone. They get searching around and they find the bodies of her mom and her dad out in outbuilding, along with the body of the baby sister. The mom and dad had both been shot. The little girl had been bludgeoned and stabbed in the neck. So now they're on the run. The police are looking for them, and they're just driving Charlie's old junker car. They know that's not going to get them very far. So they drive to Bennett, Nebraska. 70-year-old August Meyer lives, who was a friend of Charlie's, and apparently asked him for help. Now nobody knows quite what happened there. Suddenly he ends up dead, and they take his car. Because these two aren't real bright, they literally don't make it very far down the road before they get this car stuck somehow. A couple of teenagers are driving by who are really nice kids, and they offer to help. These two are the polar opposites of what Caril Ann and Charles are. They're good kids who are just out for like a Sunday drive. They're both, the type of kids everybody wants to have around. Really good kids. Never been in any trouble at all with anybody. Being nice kids. They stop and say, "Hey, can we help you?" When Robert Jensen and Carla King stop the car and offer to help them, they have no idea that these two are this kind of trouble. They apparently get in the car with them. And Charles has got this gun, but that wasn't real uncommon at the time. I live in Montana and you still see that here. It just isn't something that's gonna alarm you. So they pick them up. Okay, so I'm gonna use my Wet n Wild contour stick, and I'm gonna go kind of hard in with this contour. And I know that looks crazy. Hopefully this blends out the way I had it the other day. So they are in the car with Carla and Robert, and apparently Charlie pulls up the gun and makes them pull over. He then shoots Robert. There's a lot of discrepancy in what happens to Carla because she ends up in a different location with her pants and underwear off and is mutilated in her genital areas, and that we'll talk about in a little bit. Now they've killed 6 people. People are going a little bit crazy at this point because this is just not acceptable at this time. It wouldn't be acceptable now. It certainly wasn't then. They're just looking everywhere for these 2. People are pissed. So they stole Jensen's car and take off in it. Again, taking off and driving. When they find Carla's body and she's missing her underwear and her pants and she's mutilated, but there's no semen anywhere. The 2 drive into a wealthier section of Lincoln, Nebraska, where they enter the home of industrialist C. Lauer and Carla Ward. Both Carla Ward and Lillian Fenn were fatally stabbed. Starkweather later admitted to throwing a knife at Ward. However, he accused Carly of inflicting multiple stab wounds that were found on her body. He also accused Fugate of fatally stabbing Fency, whose body had multiple stab wounds. When Lauer returned home that evening, Starkweather shot him, and Starkweather and Fugate filled Lauer's black 1956 Packard with stolen jewelry from the house and fled to Nebraska. I'm using the Under the Sea concealer. So now they're not only on the run from the state cops, they're on the run from the FBI. Everybody knows they have this Packard. Charlie realizes this is going to be a problem. So they find a traveling salesman, Merle Colson, and he's sleeping in his Buick on the side of the road, being a traveling salesman at the time. They wake him up and shoot him, just toss his body in a ditch. In his confession, Charlie says that he shot him, but Caril Ann is the one who finished him off. And this seems to be the case for a lot of this. So they get in Merle Carlson's car, and there's been a tussle, and people have noticed this alongside the road that something's going on. So they call law enforcement. Law enforcement shows up and they're still there because Charlie can't get the car started. And then all of a sudden, Caril Ann comes running up to the law enforcement going, "It's Starkweather, he kidnapped me." It depends on who you believe, I guess. At first, Charlie says, "Yes, I kidnapped her. She didn't do anything." Well, he's tried and convicted, and she's blaming him the whole time. Eventually, they get him to testify against her in court. I just used the Balm Hot Mama for my cheeks, and I'm going to use their setting powder. Set my foundation. He gets the car started and is trying to take off in it. They shoot him and he thinks he's dying, so he stops and surrenders. So I'm going to use my palette, the Balm Nude. I'm also going to use Too Faced Natural Eyes palette, just because this has some really neutral shades in it. And I'm going to take Day out of here and just put that all over my eyes. And now I'm taking Fabulous, which is this yellowy color, but on the eyes, it looks really bright. And I'm just bringing that into my inner corner a little bit. And I'm gonna go and do a smoky outer eye on this. I'm just gonna take Flawless and Feisty, and we're just gonna start deepening up my crease a little bit. So at the trial, it's funny because I've heard of couples in jail who've like stayed totally loyal, and these 2 did not. They turned on each other, and they turned on each other hard. So at her trial, Caril Ann just says, "He kidnapped me. I had no choice in the matter. I didn't commit any of the crimes. I'm not guilty. He did it. It's not my fault." Now, she was 14, but they tried her as an adult. And in cases like this, it's really hard for me to argue that she knew he killed her baby sister, because in Charlie's testimony at her trial, he said she was home when he got there and that they had gotten a fight with her mom over whether or not she was pregnant. He ended up shooting her dad, and then he shoots her mom and then stabs the baby. And then they end up holding up for 6 days after they drag the body out to the outbuilding and just hanging out and having sex for 6 days. That's not cool. I kind of have a hard time with this one. I don't like seeing kids found guilty of crimes and spending their life in prison. But at the same time, I think, you know, you kind of got to put your foot down somewhere, right? Neither of these have a shimmery white in it. I'm going to grab something that does. My Pirates of the Caribbean Lorac palette has Ghostly in it, and I'm going to use that. That gives me that soft brightness to my inner corner and eye that I was looking for. And now I have this eyeliner from Pretty Vulgar called The Ink. It's in this adorable packaging. It is a draw-on eyeliner. Dip your brush in. So at the trial, Charlie says she knew all about all of this, and as a matter of fact, she participated in several of these murders. She's found guilty, and okay, so I'm gonna use some Kiss lashes. You can't really do a pinup look without lashes. And I have this amazing glue from Real Her that I adore. So I'm taking a really little brush, and I'm just gonna take a little bit of Funny, which is this brown here, and just lightly line my under eye, and then put on some mascara. Some more blush. So let's start talking about this case and what I think happened here. I honestly think that Caril Ann knew all about this. Looking at the evidence and everything in this case, it seems pretty obvious to me she had to know. There wasn't any crazy overt signs to people who came into the house at first that her family had been killed there, but she lived there, and you can't tell me that you wouldn't notice things. And the fact that she had multiple people come to the door, including law enforcement, while she was there and never said a word, and according to them, she didn't appear to be in any distress at all. I don't know, I'm just not buying it. Not to mention that whole thing I talked about with Carla's body and how it was mutilated. That is something that women typically do to women, especially in male-female couples. When you see something like that happen, usually it's the woman who will mutilate a woman's body in that way to disfigure them and make them unattractive. And I know that that probably sounds kind of weird, and there are, you know, male serial killers who certainly mutilate women's bodies, but usually in a male-female team. And considering it wasn't done to anyone else in this set of 3 murders, I'm finding it very hard to believe it wasn't her. Okay, so for the last thing for the makeup, I have this super red lipstick in Smashing. I don't have any highlight on yet, and I think this probably needs just a little bit. Certain pinup looks seem to have it, and others look very matte to me. So I'm just taking my Okra Nikki Tutorials Trio and using the lightest shade in it. So is Caril Ann a psychopath? She certainly was at the time, but the problem with that diagnosis, your brain isn't fully formed until you're in your 20s, and it's not even close to fully formed at 14. Most kids are psychopaths, like technically psychopaths at 14. That's why we have to teach them, you know, empathy and things, because they don't really have it at that age. They're very self-centered, and there's nothing wrong with that. That's the age they're at. Charlie is a different story. I think Charlie was just a really bad guy who wanted things easy in life and wanted her. I think he was very immature, and I think she was really immature too, and being with him made her feel more mature. And that's why it's so hard for me when you start sentencing 14-year-olds, 15-year-olds, 16-year-olds even to life in prison instead of 20 years or something. It's because you don't know what they might turn into later. Now, my problem with her is, to this day, she claims it was all him, she was kidnapped, she had nothing to do with it. I think a lot of things would go better for her if she said, okay, I'm guilty, but she's not doing that. Unwillingness to have some empathy towards these other people who died and her own family, her little sister. I mean, are you kidding me? So I don't know that I think she's a psychopath exactly. I do think she's a bit of a sociopath. I wish I could give you like a true insight into her, but the problem is she was so immature at the age she was because she was only 14. It's really hard. I'm not the person I was at 14, so I can't imagine anybody yet. But the roots are there. I don't know what she would have turned into had this not happened. She met the wrong guy and she went with it. That's what I think. I think she enjoyed herself. I think she had fun. I think she enjoyed being the bad girl and the Bonnie and Clyde type. And that is why I do have trouble let out of prison. If she had mental health advisors who said, yes, it would be okay, I might be more okay with it. As it is, I don't know. And everything that I've watched on her on TV, I don't get the impression that she's sorry. And if you can't give the impression that you're sorry for 2 seconds on TV, yeah, I ain't buying it. I'm leaving that one hanging a little bit because it is a tough one just because of her age. Given what I've seen currently, yeah. Let me know what you thought of my look. Let me know what you think of this case. I'll talk to you guys later. Bye!